The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of Bronxnet or the program underwriters.
Bronxnet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
And hello and welcome to the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren Jaime, and of course, you are watching the one and only interactive talk show. And it is bringing the Bronx, the rest of the world right to you. What are we talking about? Open, of course. Today on Open, our political analyst, Mark Myritz, joins us, and he'll evaluate some of the major stories taking over the headlines, including President Obama's proposed Job Act. Plus, in our legal corner, we continue the constitutional law series on the rights of public consumption of alcohol, and learn about a program that helps children find happiness after the loss of a loved one. And also the 14th annual Dominican American National Roundtable Leadership Summit, fast approaching. Who better to tell us than the woman who calls the shots? So we encourage you to check that out, as well as one more organization. They're destined to take Latin media to new heights, and the commissioner is here to give us all the details. We encourage you to stay with us, because right now all this and much more is heading your way, because now we're officially open. Hello, Bronxites. I'm your host, Daren Jaime. Today is Wednesday, September 28th, 2011. You're watching Open, the one and only live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York straight to your TV set. We encourage you to feel free to give us a call at 718-960-7241, or as always, send us an email to open@bronxnet.org. We also want to let you know that you can hit us up on Facebook by searching under Open at Bronxnet Television, and also on Twitter by following our page at Bronxnet TV. Well, kicking things off and starting things off today, the Turkey and Israel crisis, the special election for Anthony Weiner's seat, and President Obama's much talked about jobs bill, as well as Palestine's move to be declared a state in the UN, are just some of the headlines that are taking over the media around the nation and internationally. Our professor from SUNY Maritime, attorney and political analyst, Mark Myritz, is here and ready to dissect these points. And let's start first on the national front as we talk about President Obama. Admittedly, from the White House, it's saying right now that even looking towards re-election in 2012 going to be a very uphill battle.
Well, the main issue is the economy and jobs. And the president has announced his jobs plan. The question is, can he push unemployment down below the very scary level of 9%. Some of the pundits and economists are analyzing his new plan, which involves a proposal to increase taxes on the wealthy and also some spending cuts, as well as reducing payroll taxes and other incentives and stimuluses. The question is, will that be enough to push the unemployment rate down below 9 to at least the level of 6 or 7? That is really the $64 question. Some of the economists think that that is not possible, but some other economists believe that he'll be able to push it down, but it will only last until 2012. So what he has to do is convince the Republicans and the people that he's not just doing this to push unemployment down so he can get reelected, and then the economy kind of goes to hell.
Which speaks to the whole bipartisanship issue, because you got some people on the side who are saying, listen, this is going to be a bipartisan issue. There's going to be a bipartisan conflict. Once again, it's not going to be resolved in time before the election simply because of partisan politics. You say what?
I say that I think that it is true that there is too much partisan bickering and that both parties have to get together. But I think that the president has overemphasized this point, again, in his mind being too mindful for how this plays in his reelection campaign. I think he's heightened this issue too much, and I think he is also responsible in part for the partisan bickering. It's not only a one-sided thing. And the way the president characterizes it, it's all the Republicans' fault. I think it's the fault of the Republicans and the Democrats, including the president. They've all got to all sit together in a room and figure this out, because if they don't, the economy is going to fall apart. So I think the president maybe should put aside his campaign. I know it's hard to do, and to be the leader of all the people and try to fashion a response. I think that's the problem.
Talk a little bit about the Republicans, given the fact that
Right.
Republicans have won the seat taken by former Anthony Weiner.
Yes.
And that has created some controversy in its own right, making President Obama's possible re-election bid even an even more uphill battle. Talk to us about
maybe
this.
not. Maybe not, actually.
Okay.
I think that the president very skillfully turned this to his advantage with his speech on the Palestinian state at the United Nations. The election between Turner the Republican and Weprin the Democrat for Anthony Weiner's seat, as you just mentioned, became really a referendum on who was more pro-Israel. And Ed Koch endorsed Turner, the Republican, and said he's more pro-Israel. And Weprin said, I'm more pro-Israel. But Turner won, the Republican won, and this was sort of looked at by the leadership in the Democratic Party in Washington, including the president, looking at this as a bellwether, as some sort of a key election that might have a trend issue. And some have said that the president's speech at the UN, basically putting the Palestinian state proposal to the side and telling the parties to negotiate. Actually, New York Post said this was the beginning of his campaign, and it was a very, very effective speech. And I think that this will help him tremendously, particularly in garnering votes from the Jewish community, where he has had some difficulty in terms of his the Jewish community and the supporters of Israel have been concerned about President Obama's positions, and now this speech, I think, solidifies him in a very good way in terms of shoring up that vote, because he's got to fix the economy. He cannot spend time on this issue of the Palestinian state. He cannot divert his attention from the economy. It's the economy that's going to get him reelected, not whether there's a Palestinian state. It would be very, very nice if you get on the lawn and have the leaders of Israel and the Palestinians shake hands. That will not get him reelected. Will not get him reelected. Getting unemployment down, that's his focus. That's why he made the speech.
We even heard Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu really supporting the president, saying, listen, thank you for the work. But as you said, it's going to be the local work of jobs and the economy and things like that that's going to be.
I would like to quote Tip O'Neill, who said, all politics is local. And he was a very, very smart man, Speaker of the House. And we see it now. Politics is local. People are not looking abroad. They're not looking in the Middle East, although the whole Middle East is really falling apart, honestly. They're looking at President Obama as the man who's guiding the economy.
Let's get the latest on the Turkey and Israel crisis from you. Obviously, you've got some concerns with the way things are going right now. The latest in Turkey and Israel.
Well, I spent 3 weeks in Turkey in the summer. I was teaching at a Turkish university, actually teaching 25 Turkish professors English conversation. It was very fascinating. It's my third trip. And I was very concerned after September 2nd. On September 2nd, the Turkish government expelled the Israeli ambassador. And after that, Turkey embarked on a very, very, I think, definite effort to sway the Arab Spring, to look at Turkey as a leader. And actually, last week, Prime Minister Erdogan was here, and I had the opportunity of attending a briefing where he made a speech that was quite fascinating to see a world leader up close making these points. But what's happening is the entire Middle East is really imploding at the present time. Egypt is transforming itself. The military council that's in charge, it's the same military leaders that were there before Mubarak. Libya is now transforming. Gaddafi is out, but Libya has announced that it's going to adopt Sharia law. And one of the leaders I was just reading was formerly involved with Al-Qaeda, so that whole Libya thing. So, and Syria is literally in completely in play. The fact of the matter is, Egypt and Syria, as bad as they were under Mubarak and under Assad, were peaceful from the point of view of the region. Now, I'm not talking about how they treated the people, which they don't treat the people very well. But from the point of view of America's strategic interests, and I'm saying that's more important than the people, the region was quiet. There was no war. It's not been a war. It's not been a war there in a long time now.
But critics are also going to say, listen, we have to talk about the people and how the people were treated.
Of course. But my point is, are the people going to be better off now with the Muslim Brotherhood controlling them in Egypt? Are they going to have freedom if the Muslim Brotherhood takes power in Egypt and in Libya, or that takes over in Syria? I just wonder, because that's the problem. And then after that, the Muslim Brotherhood and others have announced they're going to relook at all the peace treaties with Israel and reevaluate those treaties. Does that mean there's going to be another war? We have Hamas in Gaza. Lebanon is completely destroyed. It's under Hezbollah. You have Syria now in play. Egypt under the Muslim Brotherhood, now under the Military Council, possibly under the Muslim Brotherhood, and Libya becoming also possibly under the Muslim Brotherhood. So what we're looking at is the transformation of the entire Middle East. Turkey has taken a position that is very strongly opposed to Israel. So the question is, how does this all play out? And then the elephant in the room, the one that we really need to talk about, is Iran, which is developing nuclear weapons as we speak and targeting Israel. So you have the possibility of a literal war or explosion in that region. I mean, it potentially disastrous as compared to what it looked like before, stable, but as you pointed out, not very democratic.
Take this back home for us for a second, because when you look at Turkey,
Sure.
you look at Israel, you look at Egypt and Libya and Syria and these places and how these regions are actually playing out. How much of an effect do you think this is going to have 2012? Bring it to Washington, D.C. once again, because after all, after President Obama was initially elected, running out to the G20, making sure that, and then getting a huge approval rating. What about what's going on now? How's that going to affect 2012?
Right, and actually he also went to Turkey and got President Obama and spoke about the model partnership with Turkey and reaching out to Muslims around the world. That was part of President Obama's policy. That was part of his approach, and he is very, very popular in the Muslim world and in the Middle East. But as far as I recall, the people in Egypt, Syria, Libya, Turkey don't vote in the United States. The people that vote here in the United States are the people that have very myopic vision, very limited vision about the world. They're concerned if there's a war. They're concerned if we're sending troops out there. They're concerned if Iran is going to blow up the world with a nuclear weapon. Yes, but till that happens, they're worried about, can I get a job?
Right.
If I'm part-time, can I get a job? And that's all they care about. And if you look at the news, you look at the coverage on our television, there's very little, as compared in Europe, very little international information.
But in all fairness, if I'm living in Riverdale, I'm part of the Israeli community, I'm looking out, I'm seeing what's going on in Israel. If I don't like the way that things are going, it transcends into how I vote come 2012. So you have to take some sort of stance and say, listen,
right. So there I agree with you 100%. And that's exactly because President Obama, in my opinion, is one of the great politicians of all time. He has good, strong political sense. He neutralized that issue effectively by making that speech at the United Nations. He completely neutralized it. He put that issue on hold for at least a number of months with the idea that the party is going to sit down and negotiate. And honestly, do you know how many times American presidents have argued that the party should negotiate? How many negotiations have taken place? Wye, River, Oslo, you name it. Presidents, one after the other, have tried to make this happen and have not been able to. So there's a risk for him. I think that if he gets reelected in 2012, he's going to make this a push for his legacy in his second term. That I do. But as far as the first term, and as far as the Israeli or the Jewish vote is concerned, he's completely handled that masterfully in order to get that support, because at this point, he's got, as you said, Netanyahu says, thank you, Mr. President, which is great, because they don't have a very good relationship. And as far as the Palestinians, you saw the expression of President Abbas at the UN.
Absolutely.
It looked like he was depressed and upset, because he expected, and in fact, Prime Minister Erdogan at this program said, well, President Obama promised the Palestinian state last year, and this year there's no Palestinian state.
Well,
that's why.
Right. And where
domestic politics.
Before I let you go, where do we see
please.
this going with the Palestinian state declaring that they want to be a state to the United Nations? We know that that's blocked right now. Where do we see things going?
I think where we are is that the Palestinians will get some sort of recognition in the international bodies, maybe a membership in the General Assembly or some sort of as an observer, non-state, something as to give them something less than a state. There's no way they're getting a state because the United States has said they're going to veto that. And actually, Prime Minister Erdogan at this meeting said, well, why do the 5 powers have a veto? They shouldn't have a veto, but that's the structure of the United Nations. That's how it works. The United States pays most of the money over the years for the United Nations, so they're entitled to have a veto, I think. And the point is, President Obama said, you're not getting a state, and you've got to go and negotiate. And actually, in my opinion, I believe that's the right approach. There has to be negotiation. You've got to sit down with the parties and work it out before you declare a state, because you really have, as they say, the cart before the horse. I don't know if that's a Middle Eastern proverb or a Turkish proverb, but it's completely reversed.
It's around the way proverb. But
Exactly.
we use it around here too.
That's right. Exactly.
Mark
exactly.
Roberts, thanks so much for joining
My
us.
pleasure.
And we'll definitely see you next month as you'll continue to give us more news and
I
views.
look forward to it.
All righty. Got to take a quick break, but coming up, we go to the legal corner. Our legal correspondent, David Lesh, and the legal corner is coming up right after this. Stay with us. You're watching Open. When we return.
I'm lucky. Let me help you with that. I get to do something I love. It has nothing to do with touchdowns or titles. Everybody bring it in. I get to play a part in the life of someone just starting out. How many of you think homework is just as important as teamwork? I help keep kids in school. Good. And that's the name of the game. My name is LaDainian Thomason. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education.
Right up here.
So every year I take promising high schoolers on a college tour
Lights there, darks there.
to show them that higher education means a brighter future. My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Find out how you can live united for education. Give, advocate, volunteer. Go to liveunited.org.
Do you wear this?
And welcome back to Open. Daren Jaime here with you. We continue now with our continuation of the constitutional law series. We get into the issue of drinking alcohol in public, more specifically, drinking on steps, the lobby of a private building. Our attorney and legal correspondent, David Lesh, now explains what rights, if any, do people have when it comes to drinking in public. And obviously, we know that this is something that...
Here's why I picked this topic. I picked this topic. I got one of the viewers sent me an email telling me that they received a summons because they were drinking on the stoops of their building, and they were giving a ticket. Now the alcohol, they were drinking alcohol. It wasn't covered. There wasn't a paper bag, and they asked me that in the email, what are my rights in terms of drinking? When can I drink? Where can I drink? And did the police have a right to give me a ticket?
Considering the fact that they're on their stupid home.
That's correct. So I thought to myself, this would be a good constitutional law topic because it does involve the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. It's a constitutional law question. So let's talk about it. All right. So it's a good idea. Let's talk about what the New York law is. First of all, it's the New York Open Container Law, which prohibits anyone from drinking an alcoholic beverage or possessing and intending to drink from an open container containing an alcoholic beverage in a public place. There are two important things in that particular statute, the New York Open Container Law. The first thing is what's considered to be alcohol, and the second question is what's considered to be public. So let's talk about what's alcohol. They make that easy for us. If it has 0.005%, it's alcohol, which is really basically everything. Okay, so whether it's a light beer or whatever it is that you're drinking, if it has any alcohol in it, I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be covered by this statute. Fine. So then the second question is what's considered to be public? Well, there was a recent case of a man in Brooklyn who was the president of his co-op, and it turns out that the steps of the co-op, the front did lead into the sidewalk. He was drinking on those steps, and he was having a drink, and of course he was given a ticket. And he said, well, wait a second, I'm sitting on my steps. These steps are part of the co-op. I'm the president of the co-op. We own the entire building, and the court said, no, that's still considered to be public property. So it's a fine line between private and public. So the question is, what can you do to protect yourself if you're not really sure? This was really what the viewer was asking me. You have to cover up whatever it is you're drinking so that a police officer a police officer does not have the right to go through a bag that you have, a pocketbook or anything to search you. We know that. It's an improper search and seizure. So if you're drinking a beer or something and it's covered in a paper bag, which of course we see often, and you kind of wonder what they're doing. I mean, it could be a soda, but it could be a beer, it could be something else. Then that's okay. Now, of course, you can't have any public drunkenness. You can't fall about on the street, but that would be all right. You wouldn't get a ticket for being able to do that. The issue is what happens when you're in a park and there's a public event, let's say. It's the Philharmonic.
Yankee Stadium.
Yankee Stadium. Well, Yankee Stadium's different because Yankee Stadium, it's a private event, and they will make you purchase alcohol from their own vendors. That's different. So you can't bring in your own alcohol to Yankee Stadium. It's still a private event, but they have a liquor license, so if you're overage, they can provide you alcohol, and of course, after a certain amount of time, 6, 7 innings, whatever it is, they can prevent you from buying it any longer. They can't prevent you from still drinking from, I guess, the 7th inning to the 9th inning or into extra innings, but they can prevent you from buying it. But it's a private venue, so that's different. The issue is what happens when the city of New York has a concert in the park, a Philharmonic, let's say, and you bring a bottle of wine and you're sitting on a blanket. Well, you're not allowed to drink alcohol sitting on your towel or wherever it is because it's still public. And Michael Bloomberg has been given some bad press sometimes because he goes to a couple of the events and he'll sip a glass of wine even though it's a fundraiser, it's a public event, but it's still alcohol and it's still in public. Now, if you have a permit, that's different. And there are certain events where you have a permit and it allows everyone else who was at that event to drink. That's not a problem. Could be at Gracie Hall, could be different places. Then you could obviously drink, even though it might be considered to be a public event.
Okay, take me through this though. So this gentleman or lady, whoever sent you the email.
$25 fine they got.
That's what they got.
Right.
Okay, so what are the ramifications of this? Because obviously, some people say, it does it affect my record? How does it work?
Well, it's a violation. It's not considered to be a misdemeanor unless it's a second offense or a third offense. Then it would be different. You go to court, you pay your fine, and usually it's okay. It doesn't end up into obviously any jail time, but it's a fine. It's a $25 fine. But if you do it more than once, then it can rise to the level of a misdemeanor. And the interesting thing in the statute, which I found interesting, is that it also prohibits. It says such public place shall also include the interior of a stationary motor vehicle, which is on any street, roadway, shopping area, which means you can't drink in your car either. A lot of people feel it's my car. I'm sitting in my car. I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting on the street, but I'm parked. I'm having a beer. Well, you're inside of your vehicle. From what can be seen from the outside, is considered to be a public space. That's why we don't allow tinted windows. And it's illegal. We want police officers to be able to look in your car from the outside, even if it's parked. It's not considered to be public. Now, we don't give police officers the right to go into your glove compartment. That's private. To go into your trunk, that's private. But to look inside your windows, or a ticket agent to look in through, no, that's okay. So if somebody's able to look inside and see you having a drink, well, that's not allowed. That's a violation of the New York open container law. So I thought that was an interesting thing. It's funny, the way it's written is that you can't have a drink in a stationary vehicle, but it makes it seem like if your car was moving, it would be okay. But it's obviously not okay either.
Right.
But it's interesting the way that's written.
So if you're in my car and you have an open container, no.
Can't.
I mean, parked, I should say. Of course, not driving.
Now, you might say, well, what if I'm parked and I'm drinking out of I'm drinking out in a paper bag? That might be okay because they can't knock on your door and ask you to open up and say, let me see what you're drinking.
Right.
That's a violation of your Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure. That's a constitutional law question. That's different. Remember, whenever we're dealing with constitutional law issues, and we're going to be doing this for the next couple of weeks, You're balancing the right of the individual's own constitutional rights, against the right of society. And it's always going to be the balance that goes back and forth. Here it's the right of an individual to be able to drink and do whatever they want to do, against the right of society to not have any public displays of lewdness, which would occur if you're letting people just walk down the street and drink alcohol. You know, they may trip, it doesn't send a good message to the younger people if you see in public people are drinking. Do you understand?
Right.
So it's always going to be that constitutional pull back and forth. And that's why we have this particular law. And I guess the viewer who had gotten the ticket said, well, I'm sitting on my private steps. Why are you giving me a ticket? Because you're right in the view of the public. Okay, so you're one step from the sidewalk, and the steps do belong to you. But the whole world goes by, children, and they see you drinking a beer. No, that's not what we want as society. We're going to balance your rights against society rights. You lose on this particular issue. You want to have a drink, go inside your lobby. But there have been cases also that have shown that that if you're too close to the steps of the sidewalk and you're in your lobby and the doors are shut, that you still may get a ticket. So I guess the moral of the story,
don't risk it.
What's private can sometimes be considered to be public. Don't risk it. Cover up whatever it is you're drinking, and just use your good common sense. It's a constitutional law issue that's always going to be, unresolved. Right. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
David, thank you. That's why we bring you in.
See you next week.
All righty. David Lesher, our legal correspondent. We encourage you. Stay with us because there is more open coming up right after the break. So got to shut it down, but we'll be right back in a few seconds.
Let's celebrate the gateway to America. It's the 7th annual Viva Bronx Festival, Sunday, October 2nd from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. between 144th and 149th Street in the Grand Concourse. This is at Hostos Community College, featuring great artists with crafts, food, and activities for the whole family. Celebrate Viva Bronx, Sunday, October 2nd from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. between 144th and 149th Street in the Grand Concourse.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me. Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV, love you. JK. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you with your friends? That's lame. We're in a huge fight right now. XO. What'd you dream about? Something I did. Are you on your way to the beach? I'm lonely. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
Flashlight and the batteries?
Yes.
Did you make sure we're not missing anything in the first aid kit?
Yep.
Did you go through the plan with the kids again?
Yes.
The more you prepare today, the more you'll be able to reduce the devastating effects of a tornado, an earthquake, a power outage, or any other disaster.
Hey, welcome back to Open. Daren Jaime here with you. We encourage you to remember this is a live, interactive show, so we encourage you join in on the conversation. Give us a call, 718-960-7241, or as always, you can send us an email to open@bronxnet.org. We open it up right here on the show, or as David just did in his last segment, we'll read it and then we'll bring it back at a future segment. Well, the loss of a loved one is a difficult process for everyone, no matter what the age is, but most complicated for young people, especially when they're coping with the loss of a parent or an immediate sibling. Here in the Bronx, Calvary Hospital's bereavement program helps children and teens remember the lives of their lost family members, but also encourages them to know it's okay to have fun. Director of Calvary's Hospice Bereavement Services, Dr. Sherry Schachter, now joins us on the show to explain just how they assist in easing in the grieving process. And Dr. Schachter, thank you so much.
Thank you.
When you talk about bereavement, it's already a rough subject for anybody, but more particularly for children, because your mind just might not be ready to cope with the process. I know you guys are pretty intensive in how you deal. Share with us a little bit about assisting young people in this bereavement process.
Well, you know, it's interesting because years ago we used to think that children didn't need to know, they didn't understand, we didn't have to really explain to them about bereavement or about what happens when someone dies. But over the years through research we realized that that's not true. Children, especially young children, are very egocentric. So the three questions that they have when someone is dying or has died is, you know, did I cause it to happen? because kids believe in magical thinking. If I wish for a bicycle for my birthday and a bicycle is there, then wow, what I wish for happens. So if I have a fight with my brother and I tell him, I wish you were dead, and then my brother dies, did I cause that to happen? Tremendous guilt that children have. So did I cause it to happen? Will it happen to me? And who's going to take care of me? So children, if they're old enough to love, they're old enough to grieve, and we have to pay attention to that and to be able to prepare children both during a process, if it's an illness such as cancer and we have the opportunity, or after a death.
So children, we talk about the grieving process, a lot different than adults. And are these, I know you listed a couple of these, but what are some of the other ways that children are just grieving different than adults?
Well, with young children, they don't have the words, so they don't know how to explain how they're feeling. Different from adults who can say, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm worried. Young children often don't have those words. So we use what we call experimental and art therapy, expressive art therapy, as a way to help them express their emotions. So for example, I brought this to show you, and that's a young child who's drawn a picture of what they feel inside, the sadness and the shock. That helps them to express their feelings. Older children have the words. So older children, like teens, for example, may act out in different ways. They may be problems in school. They may act out with risk-taking behaviors. So they're very different from adults who are grieving.
So we see a picture that says sad, shocked, and so these are some of the bereavement services you offer at Calvary, and we want to say that too, to let people know that young people do have the opportunity to grieve in their own kind of way. You cater specifically in that kind of way. Share a little bit more about the services you provide.
Okay. Well, I think you have to understand a little bit about Calvary. Calvary started in 1899. And initially was for women, indigent women who were dying of cancer. Men weren't admitted into the hospital until the 1940s. The focus of the hospital has always been palliative care, and the core values of the hospital are respect for and dignity for the patient, compassion, and non-abandonment. And that non-abandonment means patients and families. And at the hospital, both here in the Bronx, as well as our satellite site in Brooklyn, and our home hospice program, our home care program, and our hospice nursing home program, all focus on patients and families. And we follow our families for 13 months. Now, having said that, all of our bereavement services are open to the community. All our bereavement services are free. So individuals did not have to have their loved one die at the hospital in order to take advantage of the services. We have many groups that we offer. We do children's groups for ages 6 to 11 called Precious Moments. We have our teen groups, obviously for teenagers. And then we have our adult groups, both in the Bronx and in Brooklyn, for those who have lost spouses or partners, those who have lost adult children, and for adults who have lost a parent. We have Spanish-speaking groups as well, and we have a men's group that I'm proud to say was in the New York Times science section about 3 weeks ago, an article about the men's group. So there are many, many activities that we offer, many groups. We're not a mental health clinic, so we don't do too much individual counseling.
When you talk about the numbers of children, teens, and youth, what kind of numbers are you seeing coming through your doors?
Well, we just had our summer camp. We have a bereavement summer camp. And Camp Compass this year was our 14th year. It's a day camp in the summer for bereaved kids, and we had 53 kids. That's children and teens. I looked at the numbers, and I think it was 2004, we had 17. So the numbers have increased greatly. And we see that. You look at the newspaper, you see the demographics of where we live. Kids come with all kinds of trauma. These are not just cancer deaths. They're certainly cancer deaths. They're illness-related deaths. There are also suicide, drug overdoses, shootings. There are all kinds of losses that these kids come into the group. And many of them have multiple losses as well.
Talk a little bit about this program here. You've got Calvary in Touch and some monthly matinees.
It's a monthly newsletter that goes out to clinicians and to our families and others that want to go on the newsletter. And certainly if you go on our website and click on that, you can get information about how to get copies of the newsletter. What's important about the newsletter is the back page of the newsletter gives you information about all the groups, who's facilitating them, you know, when is the Spanish-speaking group being held, who does someone need to call to do that. Once a month we have, it's called Friday Matinees, where we show a movie that is either related to dying or trauma or bereavement. The Bucket List, for one, we showed, Steel Magnolias. There's tons of movies out there. That then leads to a discussion afterwards. So for those families that don't want to do a group or don't feel they need a group, they can come participate in the movie and then have a support discussion afterwards.
Before we leave, make sure we get the information out so if people want to take part in these services, not even knowing that these services existed, somebody's listening and watching right now saying, how can I be a part? How can they go about that?
The website is www.calvaryhospital.org. And when you go on that website, all that information is there.
All right, Dr. Sherry Schachter, Director of Bereavement Services, thank you so much for sharing with us here on Open.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All righty. We encourage you to stay with us because coming up, it's the biggest day of the year for the Dominican American National Roundtable, and the President is up next to tell us about the very special summit when we return.
A sandwich is a quick and easy choice. And with the right ingredients, it can be good and good for you. So I'm here today to see who can build the ultimate sandwich. All right, when the time is up, our judges will give you their scores. Ready, set, go! Okay, Jason starts out with a multi-grain roll. Ooh, Allison stuffing her pita with, yes, spinach, a great source of iron. Jason isn't skipping on the protein, adding plenty of smoked turkey, just like Allison's putting the finishing touches with crispy red bell peppers for a dose of vitamin A. Time! It looks like we have a tie. We'll need to call in our special guest referee.
Now these are what I call quick, delicious lunches. Whole grain breads, a whole variety of ingredients. There are so many different ways to build delicious, healthy sandwiches. These two get high marks in every category. I'd say you're both winners. America.
Let's get healthy together.
And welcome back to Open. Daren Jaime here with you. The Dominican American National Roundtable has and will always make its mission to be the voice of the Dominican American community. They're committed to ensuring their quality of life by highlighting their already many accomplishments. On Friday, October 7th, they're honoring some leaders in the community with their annual Leadership Summit taking place right here on the campus of Lehman College. Here now to talk more with us on the summit is the president, Dr. Maria Teresa Feliciano. We thank you so much for sharing with us, and good to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Good. Summit is right around the corner, and of course, it's got to be an exciting time for you guys as you gather up for this year's event.
As every year, we have our National Leadership Summit, and this year we're coming to the Bronx, to Lehman College. Not by coincidence. Bronx, as you know, is the place with the most Dominicans outside of the Dominican Republic in the world. The Dominican population has grown considerably in the Bronx. So our national conference is coming to Lehman College. We'll be here October 7th to 9th. And we have a program, especially on Saturday, with our legislative breakfast, workshops, luncheon, and so forth, that will surely stimulate projects, conversation, issues that affect our growth. For example, two of the workshops that we have planned, one is Dominicans and African Americans. Let's talk. The purpose of this workshop is actually to explore ways of becoming a force to reckon with, to create coalitions that, would advance both of our interests. You have these two minority communities living right here. The
And there's a little disconnect.
And there's a little disconnect. And there's also some misunderstandings as to how we should work. And I usually preface, how our relationship goes by saying, we all came on the same boat. We were dropped in different places along the Americas and the Caribbean. And we are here in the United States, and we are cohabitating. Our communities are next to one another, and it's a matter of working together that we can both occupy our rightful place at the table. So this workshop is going to be very interesting. It's a continuing conversation of one we initiated 2 years ago in our annual summit in Florida, where Dominican and African American leaders came together and did exactly this, like how, what are our connections here? How can we proceed for the benefit of both of our communities?
Talk to us a little bit about this problem, because there's a problem going on all across the nation with the issue of redistricting. I know you guys are taking a very strong look and very strong approach at dealing with redistricting. Where do things stand amongst you, and how are you looking to tackle this?
Daren, the issue of redistricting is foreign to most regular people. They don't wake up every day, oh, redistricting is taking place. And it's an issue that affects our lives. Redistricting is basically the drawing of the legislative maps, Assembly, Senate, Congress, Council, all the maps that will determine who represents you in that area. And it actually takes place not in the public eye. It's a process that takes place every 10 years after the census. And in a nutshell, it should be, the redrawing of the legislative maps should be just a reshuffling of these maps based on the growth in population, demographics. Let me give you a basic example. If the population grew by 2 million, for example, whatever that figure adds to the number of people that should be in a district should be achieved in the drawing of the map. It's that simple. It should be. The process should really reflect the population. Experts on maps and people should sit around the table and draw these maps and say, now District 14, 15, and 16 will be here.
But key word in the sentence is but.
That's not what happens. What happens in New York and every other state where this is taking place is usually that a commission is appointed to draw the maps. Guess what? The commission is appointed by the dominant political parties. So the commission is 50% Democrat, 50% Republican. When this group comes together, guess what their interest is going to be? Preserving the incumbents, preserving whatever advantage one party has over the other, and that's what they have in mind in drawing the districts. Never mind population growth, proper representation, or anything like that. So where we come in as an organization, and the public, the community can come in, is officially this task force, this commission in New York, has hearings, open hearings, where the public can come in and suggest what maps they want, what would be representation for them. So people can come in. The roundtable has been doing this in New Jersey and Massachusetts, now in New York. We're coming in and we're saying this map, particularly right now, in the Bronx and Washington Heights, will provide representation for Latinos in New York. Let me tell you that with the population that is now about 19% in the state of New York, logic and fairness will say that we would have 19% representation in the legislature. It's not that way. 19% would be out of 150 assembly persons, we should have 25. Out of 62 senators, we should have 10. Out of 29 congressmen, women, we should have 5. Right now, New York has 2 Latino Congress members. When it should, we should have 5. We are proposing maps in the areas where Latinos are concentrated that will favor or that would allow us to elect candidates of our choice, which is one of the principles of redistricting, that communities of interest, meaning communities that have interest in common, socioeconomic status, education, places of worship, transportation, they are represented by a person who reflects them, who is one of them. That's what really, the 1965 Voter Rights Act calls for.
What kind of response are you getting, given the fact of addressing the whole issue of redistricting? What's the response been on the public side, if you can share with those people that you've been sharing this with?
The response varies, depending on who's giving it to you. The community is claiming, they want representation. For example, our growing communities, like I said, in Washington Heights, in West Bronx, and in the Bronx, say we want more representation. You have, we don't have it, for example. So that response is good. They're coming in, they're testifying. And I would say the politicians or the elected officials, if our proposed maps affect their district, in that the lines take a little bit away from them, or it takes them a little, away from the area, they're not happy. They, don't touch this, they would say, or don't touch my constituency, not to affect the percentage they will have of a certain group. And in the most extreme case, if there's one elected official whose district is going to be considerably changed to be more Latino, of course, she's screaming, and won't have that. But as I said before, we are going by what is the principle of redistricting. We need to see the population of the places where we live reflected in these maps that will determine who's going to represent us.
And we're going to tell you that you can hear this discussion and a whole lot more discussion that's taking place October 7th and 9th right here at Lehman College. And you can register for the DNR 14th Annual National Leadership Summit. There you see the information on your screen right there. Our advancement in education, economic development, and community empowerment paving the way. What more do you want people to know in terms of getting in touch and being a part of this?
They have to come to the conference. On Friday, I didn't mention, there's going to be a youth extravaganza, Friday the 7th, right at the Lovinger Theater in Lehman. And we're asking students, everyone, the youth is going to put out a show. It's a showcase of bachata, poetry, statements. It's going to be a beautiful youth night. And then the conference is Saturday from 8 to 10. And the workshops include economic development, leadership skills, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, let's talk, all the subjects that, lead us to working on an agenda of empowerment and advancement for Latinos. So I ask everyone to, check in our website, www.danr, and register and come to the conference.
And of course, you can find out more information about the conference, staying tuned here to Open. You'll continue to get more information as you saw it on the bottom of the screen and in our little full page there. And you'll continue to take advantage of it October 7th through the 9th right here on the campus of Lehman College. And Dr. Maria Teresa Feliciano, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today.
Thank you, Daren.
All right, got to take a quick break and come back. Talking next about the Latin media. Guess what? The Latin Media and Entertainment Commission has one mission, and that's to turn New York City into the Latin media capital of the world. How they're going to do that, who's going to do that, well, guess what? Got to stay tuned right here on Open to find out when we return.
Let's celebrate the gateway to America. It's the 7th annual Viva Bronx Festival, Sunday, October 2nd from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. between 144th and 149th Street in the Grand Concourse. This is at Hostos Community College, featuring great artists with crafts, food, and activities for the whole family. Celebrate Viva Bronx, Sunday, October 2nd from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. between 144th and 149th Street in the Grand Concourse.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me. Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV, love you. JK. Holla back, holla back, holla back. Are you with your friends? That's lame. We're in a huge fight right now. XO. What'd you dream about? Something I did. Are you on your way to the mall? I'm lonely. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
The magical thing about using energy wisely is that anyone can do it. Turn off lights. Use energy-saving light bulbs. And turn off computers and game systems when not in use. Make a change and we can really fly. Grab a grown-up and go online to energy.gov/kids.
Back here on Open, Daren Jaime here with you. The Latin Media and Entertainment Commission was created to make New York City the Latin media capital, developing a plan to recruit and expand media and entertainment businesses, productions, and jobs throughout the city. Not only do they want to expand Latin media productions, they aim to attract high-profile productions, and next week, beginning October 3rd, they're hosting the second annual Latin Media and Entertainment Week, featuring a host of events and thousands of attendees. Commissioner Carlos Manzano is here, and he talks more about the commission, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Good to have you. So it's got to be an exciting time for you, too.
Absolutely. This is the greatest city in the world, and we're going to make this city the capital of Latin media and entertainment. Our mission is to make, as you stated, New York City the main capital and central source for Latin media and entertainment, with two goals in mind. One is around economic development, attracting companies to New York, retention, and creating jobs. And number two, to attract big events and also to create events. The Latin Media and Entertainment Week being a great example of what we are doing in the commission.
How do we get out there to the place where you're making those connections to really draw to do this? Because tall order. And obviously, I know you've got some goals and objectives in trying to make that happen.
Absolutely. We have already achieved a number of goals. For example, Univision used to be in Los Angeles, executive offices. About 2.5, 3 years ago, they moved to New York. So that brought a lot of jobs to New York, incredible tax base, and of course, tax revenue for the city. And we're going to be aiming to target specific networks and media production companies along the way. It's a process that we're going through to achieve that now, but we're working very closely with the industry so that we understand what's happening in the industry, what changes are taking place in the industry. As we all know, media changes every other day with technologies and everything. But we're very proud to say that we have the two largest Hispanic TV networks here in New York City. We have the number 2 magazines in the country, People en Español magazine and Latino magazine here in New York City. We have about 3 radio stations which are in the top 6 here in New York City. So there's a concentration, and when you begin to build a concentration of media and entertainment, other companies are going to say, I have to be where the action is, and the action is New York City. Also, New York City has, by revenues, the top 15 Hispanic ad agencies right here. So in other words, the transactions are taking place here because this is a business city. This is the financial capital. This is the media capital. This is the cultural capital. In addition, we now support 23 annual events that have been taking place in New York, and what we have done is boost them, give them a marketing boost so that we can attract more people. Over 300,000 people are participating at these events, and I have to say that about 30% of the audiences are non-Latinos, which for us is wonderful because what it shows is that Latin culture is not just defining a niche, but rather appeals. Art appeals to everyone. Music appeals to everyone. Film appeals to everyone. So we are engaging many, many more audiences.
So when you talk about the engagement of audiences, obviously you're looking to get that greater, that greater audience to really buy in. What has been the buy-in so far when it comes to spreading the word and getting the message out? Are you finding that you're reaching more?
Absolutely. We have really extended our reach, and this year our Latin Media and Entertainment Week, as you mentioned, begins October 3rd and ends October 9th. Last year, we created this first week, and it attracted over 90,000 participants in a matter of 1 week to 22 different events. Again, film, art, music, dance. And this year, we added even more. We added comedy, we added literature, and we are adding youth, which I think is essential to kind of attract them and to make sure they're part of the culture and the experience that New York has to give as well. So
share with us a little bit about the events that will be taking place throughout the course of the week, because obviously, as you said, a busy week, and you've got, hopefully about, 90,000 people, if not then more, participating in these events. What are some of the things that people can be able to grab hold to during this week?
Absolutely. We have everything available on the website, which is www.nyc.gov/LMEW, or they can Google Latin Media and Entertainment Week. The events are cultural. Some are open and free to the public, so people should take advantage of these great events that are taking place in New York for free. Of course, we all know that these are tough economic times, and we want to balance things out so that people can take advantage of them. We also have some business conferences so that we are attracting the CEOs, the executives, which are going to be taking place, and of course we'll be having a reception. Part of the whole week is to attract everyone. It's not just the business component, but it's to allow New Yorkers to enjoy great events during a week that is happening during Hispanic Heritage Month. And we conclude that week with the Hispanic Day Parade, which attracts about 1 million people to Fifth Avenue. And of course, I'll be there marching and interviewing with people. So there's something in there for everyone to enjoy. And in the greatest city in the world, why waste the opportunity? So join us during the week because it's going to be very exciting.
And when you talk about being here in New York, it is the media capital of the world. What has been the response with those other media entities? Because obviously there's been a connection too with other media entities and making them aware and things of that nature. Are you finding that there are some people who just aren't aware of the power and the presence of the Latin community in the way that it should be actually represented?
In fact, we just released for the first time the commission, which is made up of 40 members, and 30 of them are private sector individuals, CEOs from the major networks and other magazines as well. We just released a fact pack, which contains information about New York City, that a lot of people do not know that New York City has the largest campus in the United States of America. We're talking about young people going to colleges and universities. We have the largest campus in the country, number one. We have 42 Fortune 500 companies here. Obviously, the networks are here. The financial sector has shifted, but it's still New York is considered number one for business in the world. A segue to that is that we also integrated the 2010 census information. Obviously, there has been a dramatic demographic change in the city, and that's important. Certain groups are growing. The Dominican population has grown, but more interestingly, the Mexican population has nearly doubled in size from 10 years. And I predict that 10 years from now, they could be the number one group in New York, meaning as in terms of numbers, because of the growth that is taking place so accelerated in a short period of time. Also, New York City has the largest number of Hispanic-owned businesses. This is key information. New York City has the largest number of Hispanic-owned businesses and sales from those businesses than any other city in the United States. Media is finding this information extremely valuable. Corporations will be looking at this information because the dollars are here. Although New York City is number 2 in buying power, right behind LA, what it shows is the potential opportunities, because within 10 years we can be number 1 in buying power. That's a lot of money for consumption, for television, for buying houses. Hopefully the economy will bounce back and people will be able to get back on track. It's going to take a little time to get there, but we'll certainly are working to make sure that we create the conditions for not only the culture, but the business component, and for people to really have great opportunities in this wonderful city.
Well, we wish you all the best. We encourage people to be a part of Latin Media and Entertainment Week taking place, and we want you to know it's from October the 3rd to 9th. And Carlos, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us here, and good to have you here on Open.
Thank you for having me on the show.
All righty. Well, we encourage you now to make sure to take advantage of all the information that you got. You saw it on the screen, the bottom of the screen, and unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this show. But guess what? It's been a pleasure coming into your homes, and of course we want to thank our guests for joining us, but most of all we want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of the show or you just caught Carlos in the middle of it, guess what? You can see the re-cablecast tonight, 10 p.m., Channel 67. Of course, you can catch a brand new episode if you really want to catch one with my girl, Rhina Valentin. She's here Friday, and she'll be bringing it to you at 10 a.m. right here on Bronxnet's Channel 67. For all of us here on the set of Open, I'm Daren Jaime saying thank you for watching. Remember, keep your heart, your mind, but most of all, this channel wide open. Take care.
Whoa.